Okay, welcome back. In this video, we're going to cover a little bit more on Windows 10, and then we're actually going to start covering Linux as well. So what we're going to do is go to our lab, NetLabs, right? So let's go to our NetLab access and log in. Need to create a new reservation, general class, and ITSC 1305 for Spicer, and our workstation lab once again. We'll just set it for now. We'll go ahead and give us some time here. Alright, then we'll go into our lab. Alright, so we're in. Our password is password. Okay, we're going to launch our VMware. We're going to run our VM, our Windows 10. See if we can't make this a little bigger. Maybe too big. It's a little better. Alright. While that's installing, while it's starting up, I'm just going to go and do our Linux lab. So we're going to go to the Home tab. We're going to create a new virtual machine. Do a typical install. We're going to go browse, and we're going to find our Ubuntu. Right, it's in the B drive. ISO is Ubuntu. Go next. Alright, so here we need student. Password is password. And this is going to be VM2. And default of 20 gigs is fine. We don't need to customize any hardware, so we're just going to finish. And it's going to start loading our Linux. All right, so now that's going and we're starting up. We'll go back to our VM1. It should be open. I'm going to just let the Linux install go. Log in as student with password. All right. So we're talking about the control panel and how you can uninstall and install software. You can manage, do all kinds of other management tasks from our control panel. But one of the things that is not really listed here is Windows features, right? But I guess some programs features. So yeah, so if we can go to the control panel and programs and features, we can turn on and off Windows features. And so there are a lot of features that come available with Windows 10, but a lot of them, as you can see, are off, right? So some of this is needed or necessary, and others, most of the time aren't needed. Let's see here. So they have PowerShell. That's a way of doing some scripting. That comes in by default. Let's see here. TFTP client and Telnet clients. These are very insecure, but you may have a need for them. They allow you to transfer files or to connect to remote systems, but they're insecure. They're very insecure. There's newer products that have more security around them. One of the things, though, Internet Information Services, IIS, this could make this machine a web server. Yeah, so if you were hosting web files, web pages, you could do that with this service, but you're not going to want to do that on most workstations. You really typically want a server for that, but you can do it. So you can turn on the World Wide Web services, or make this an FTP server too. But they're nice features, and it's available even in Windows 10. But typically you use a server for these purposes, but you can use just a Windows workstation to host web files and websites. Hyper-V. This is Microsoft's version of VMware. So we've got this virtual machine is running in our VMware instance of software. Hyper-V is Microsoft's version of a hypervisor, and it allows you to create virtual machines, and it comes available, but it's turned off on Windows 10 by default. You can enable it, and right now this is disabled, right, because we don't have virtualization capabilities on this VM. I try to set it, but we don't have the resources on these machines. Basically, if we go to the settings, because it's a feature found in the BIOS or UEFI in most systems, and so right. Um, and, oh yeah, processors. So it's these check boxes here, and I can't do anything with them because I'm running the VM. I'd have to turn the VM off and check them. Um, but this turns on and enables virtualization, and then I could enable Hyper-V. But these need to be off because it's not going to run very well in the NetLab environment because we're already virtualizing a virtual machine, and then on that virtual machine we're running VMware and running another virtual machine. So we've already got a virtual machine within a virtual machine. So to enable these and then do another virtual machine, we'd have a virtual machine running in a virtual machine in a virtual machine, and it just really it's too far. It has issues. So we want those off on our VMs. But those are some of the features. You can turn Windows features and functions on and off, and Hyper-V is one of them. Um, right. Um, and the Hyper-V comes with Pro or Enterprise, right? But you're going to need more memory, more memory than we have too, because right, we only have 2 gigs of memory on this machine and 8 gigs on our NetLab machine. You need a lot more memory if you're really wanting to virtualize and do a lot of virtual machines. Um, you need more RAM. You just absolutely need the RAM. Um, let's see here, just checking to make sure. Um, um, yeah, I think. Oh, the settings window. Uh, So this is another admin tool feature where you can manage system devices, phones, personalizations. This is very similar to control panel, but a different view and different access to different things, right? So your time and languages, you can uninstall apps and features, right? So it's much like the control panel, um, but it's got its own access. Um, and so we can go to our devices, right? We can check out what devices are installed. We can look at our printers and scanners. We can add our printers and scanners. We can deal with our mouse. You know, select which is your primary button, right? Because some people, left, right-handed people like to have the mouse set differently. Um, you know, yeah, you can autocorrect misspelled words, things like that. You can just make your experience different through here. And let's see here. Right, personalization. Right, you can really change it out, and this is where we got our desktop. Right under themes, we can get our desktop icons. That's how I got my desktop icons. Right through here, right. Um, but you can you can lock the screen. You can do backgrounds. You can change your fonts. This is really all about you and how you want to make Windows look and feel. All right, I think. Yeah, I think that's all I have here. So we're still loading Linux. So let's just see what else can I cover here. All right, once again, you got the icon view or the category view. And category is the default. You can go to the programs. You can uninstall a program. You can turn features on and off, right? View install updates. Let's see here. Well, let's do system and security. So here, right, so we can review our status and resolve issues from security and maintenance. All right. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. All right, security, right. We can change our user account control or UAC, right? That's what happens when you try to run admin applications like the registry editor, right? So if I do reg edit and run this tool, I get the UAC or user account control, right? Are you sure you want to run this, right? And so if I say yes, then it runs, and I'm fine. I'm gonna revert this back. All right. It remembers where you left off, obviously, but we can change those settings. You know, you can actually, turn them off, right? Which is not recommended. And so now I won't get. I just say OK. So now if I run regedit, it should just launch. See, I didn't get prompted because the registry access control was off. And so if I put it back, right, so notify me when the app tries to make changes to my computer, right, that's the default. That's a good setting. But you can always turn it off, right? And it's not recommended, but it's definitely convenient. Let's see here, we go. Go back. So Windows Firewall. So we have a firewall on this device. What comes installed on Windows by default, and they're on. It's not going to matter on this machine because we have no network connections. But there's two settings. There's for public networks and then for private networks. Private networks are a little bit more relaxed, and then public networks are a lot more locked down by default. But you can adjust them depending on which type of network connection you have, and you have to identify the network connections as private or public, and then the settings will apply. But you can turn the firewall on and off, right? And once again, by private or public, right? So you might turn off the firewall for your private networks, but leave it on the public internet-facing network, and then that way you have less obstructions in your internal network. It's up to you, but I mean, a lot of times the firewall can be a challenge to get things working, and so turning it off on the private network is not always that bad. It's definitely can be very useful when trying to do some things internally. But try to keep it on the public networks. I mean, that's, but, there may be times and needs that you might have to adjust it as well. But you can go in and do advanced settings in which you can get even more granular with the security instead of just on and off. So you can have inbound rules when things come in, if the, and here's the defaults, and you can change or add, right? And then your outbound rules when things go out, what are you doing, right? What are you checking for? and you can give access to applications and printers, right? So here's file and printer sharing, right? Um, and you can monitor and see what's going on. Right, and so there's a lot to the firewall. Is all I want to say. We're not going to get into this. This is more for the advanced security class, but it is here. It is a feature on Windows 10. You can turn it on and off, or you can go in the advanced settings and be very granular about what applications have access out or access in. And so it's definitely something to learn about. Then, we got BitLocker, it's drive encryption, so you can encrypt the hard drive. It's a good feature that is used by many enterprises or organizations to encrypt all the files and data on the hard drive. But please make sure you know what you're doing and keeping the information for this, because if you have issues, you could lose your data. You may not get access to your data because it'll be encrypted. Let's see here. Backup and restore. We can do backups since we have an extra drive, right? If you had an external drive or something like that, you can do your backups to the external drive, or so set up a backup. All right, I'm going to cancel this, but you can create a system image and or a repair disk. These are very important after you install. You definitely would want to create a system image of a machine. Once you install Windows and all your applications and you get it exactly how you want it, you want to take a system image of everything, because then you can restore back to that state if anything were to ever go wrong. And then creating a system repair disk also will help you in case there's issues that occur later in the future. But you need to do these prior to having a problem. Right? You can't create a system image after you have a problem. If you have a problem and your machine won't boot or whatever, it's too late to create a system image. So do that right after you've got everything configured exactly that you want. And then you may even, like after major updates, if you do a major update too, or right before you do an update, is a good idea. You're going to take the system image before you do the update, and then after the update if it works. File history is a really nice feature that just saves versions anytime you make a change, right, to your files. Turn this on, and then anytime you make a change to a file, it creates a new copy. It saves the old version and the new version. And then you can choose your settings, right? So right now the default is every hour, right? It takes a copy of any changes that have occurred, and it keeps them forever. That's probably not a good idea because eventually your hard drive will fill up. It's nice, but maybe 1 month or 3 months is all you really need, or even a year. But forever is a very long time. But probably a month is adequate for most people because you're getting it every hour. Any changes you've made in an hour, it's going to make a copy of it, and you really need that copies of copies, from longer than a month? Probably not. But but just be careful, right? Because the default is forever, right? So we'll go here. I'm just going to turn this off. We don't really need it running. Don't need it wasting space on here. But it is an option. All right, let's see here. Where are we? Looks like it's still running. It looks like it's rebooting, which is a good sign. And it's going through its checklist like Windows does, but it's more verbose. It actually shows you what it's doing, whereas Windows just kind of shows you that spinning wheel. Let's see here. All right, we'll come back. Let's see where that's at here in another minute or two. So let's go back here. All right. Admin tools. These are really useful if you're an administrator on the machine. So you've got all kinds of tools. Like we've used some of them, like the registry editor. We've already used. Let's see here. System information is a good one, right? So it gives us all kinds of information about our system, right? You know, the version of Windows, system name, BIOS information. We get our hardware, right? You know, we get all kinds of information about our hardware. Components, any of our components that we have, storage, right? Drives, we get information about our hard drives, USB, we can even get some software information, services, but yeah, so the system information gives a wealth of information, but let's see here. Right, it tells us how much memory we have, page file. All this is very useful information when you're troubleshooting and things like that. Our services, right? Once again, I told you there's software that runs in the background, and so we have all these services. Some of them are running, some of them start up when we do certain things, and, you know, and some of them are disabled even, right? They're just there, but they're currently disabled. One of them, like I mentioned in the reg edit, was a spooler service. So if we go down here, oh, it's under printer, isn't it? Print spooler. It's under print spooler, but we'll click on it. It's running, but the name of the service is spooler. So if you access it through code or scripts, you have to go by the spooler, its service name, not its display name, which is print spooler. And we can stop and start it. We can change it from automatic to manual or disable it. We'll just leave that alone. But we could stop it, so we can stop it. So right now, all printing on this machine would stop. No one could print because this print spooler is stopped. And then we just start back up, and then printing would start again. But that's the service that allows you to print. And there's so many services on the machine when you can use this services management console. And most of these are Microsoft management consoles. So you can type MMC, and you'll see that we get this Microsoft management console, right? And it's like the Swiss Army knife, we'll say yes, of management devices, because what we can do is add and remove snap-ins, which are all these admin tools, right? So we can add the computer management tool in there. It's asking, do I want to manage this computer or another computer, and then allow me to change from local to another computer. So what that means is that I can remotely manage a computer using this tool. Event viewer, I can add that. Once again, local or another computer. Let's say OK. Let's see here. Device management, disk management. I can do. That's in computer management. Let's see, services, like the services we just opened, local, another, or remote, right? And so I'm going to say OK. So now I've got these three tools in here. Once again, here's my services management console. Looks just the same here, but it's in this one pane of glass. And so now I can save this as admin tools, right? And I put that on my desktop. And so now I can close that. And now I can open up my admin tools, and I could have all these lists of tools already available. I could create my own, and then there's others. If you install Active Directory in computers, users and computers, you can get all kinds of Active Directory snap-ins, and you can do all kinds of other administrations from within here. And so so as I said, I can get computer management. I can do my disk management here, all from this one thing. I can look at my events, any error messages. I can get my error messages, and all in one place. I can have all my tools, or a good large part of all my tools that I need in this management console. And that's like I say, it's an MMC. Just type MMC in the search bar here, and it'll bring up the management console. But most of these admin tools can be put into this Microsoft Management Console because they are management consoles. Let's see here. You can do your firewall administration, right? All performance monitor. You can see how the machine's running. The ODBC data sources, if you're dealing with databases, things like that. There's just a wealth of information or access in here. Component services, if you develop your own components, you would use component services to register and administer your components, and basically it's developing of code and programs for Windows. Not everybody does this, but it is available if you are dealing with them. But yeah, that's their admin tools, and this is just from the system and security from our control panel, right? Just so much available. All right, let's just see here. Okay, finally, we have Linux installed, and we'll just click and drag the arrow up, and that'll expose the login screen. And so then we'll click on our student, and our password is password, and then it will log us in. So this is Ubuntu Linux. It is a different operating system than Windows. It is a free open source operating system, whereas Microsoft is a proprietary, and it costs money to license Windows 10, whereas Ubuntu is completely free. Alright, so machines are a little slow, but okay, and so this is Ubuntu. You can see that it's got a graphical user interface, or GUID, just like Windows. So we gotta go through this. What's next? New. Right. And no, don't send any information, because one, we don't have any access to send any information. Alright, let's see if we can get through this here. Alright. Okay, so Ubuntu comes with certain software already installed, and that you can install. Yeah, unable to download, right? So it's trying to do all kinds of updates, but it can't. But one of the things is we show our applications here, these 9 dots. Yep. Alright, so you got a calculator, some card games, right? Firefox comes installed with it, a pretty outdated version, unfortunately. And then we got some more, a Sudoku, right? But one of the most important things here is the terminal, right? So you're going to be using the terminal a lot, because we will be using the command line in Windows and in Linux quite frequently. So this is the command line at Linux, and we can traverse the hard drive here. So one of the first things we're going to do is we do a PWD, or present working directory. That tells us where we're at, tells us we're in the /home/student. So the first thing to recognize between Windows and Linux is the slashes are different, right? So Linux will use the slash underneath the question mark near the right shift key. It'll use those slashes, right? Whereas Microsoft, when it's doing its directories and its paths, will use the backslash over the return, so it goes the other way, right? So Linux is /, Windows is a backslash, right? And then we did a PWD, tells us where we're at. We can do a ls basically, and I do a ls. Well, let's just do an ls list, right? So list all the other directories and files that are in this folder that I'm in, right? And so I can go here graphically. Let's go to our files here, and we can see the same desktop documents, downloads, music, pictures, examples, right? And if I move this down, right, I got desktop downloads, music, pictures, videos, documents, pictures, templates, right? Examples, yeah, examples.desktop, right? That's a shortcut, right? That's this right here. It's a shortcut. So I can see the same things from the command line that I can see from the graphical user interface. I like to do the ls-l because that shows me more information, because it tells me if it's a D, it's a directory, and then the rest is who's got access, right? Read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute 3 times, and that's for whoever is listed here, right? This is the owner, and those first 3 attributes go to the owner. The next 3 go to the group, right? So this is actually a group, and then the last 3 go to anyone else, right? So so this desktop, the user listed here, which is student, has read, write, and execute. That means they've got full access and full control to the desktop, which makes sense because it's the student's desktop. The next one is anyone in the group student will have read and execute. They don't have write, but they can read and execute. So this is a group. Also happens to be the name of my user, but it is a group that I could put somebody in if I wanted to give them access to my desktop. I could give them access to my desktop by just putting them in the student group, and they'd be able to read and execute files. They wouldn't be able to write or change files, but they could read and execute. And then I wouldn't have to do that because basically everybody has read and execute permissions to my desktop folder, which is probably not what we want, but it's okay. But I do that, and so I can go on to my Windows machine, and I'm going to open up my command prompt. Wow. And I can do a dir, which is the same as an ls on Linux. So I just listed my directory, and I can see I have my desktop, documents, downloads, favorites, etc. Right? And if I go to the folder, right, I can see that I have the desktops, documents, downloads, favorites. Right? So it's just the same way. Let's go into my documents folder. Okay, right now there's nothing in there, and I'm going to go cd to documents, and then I'm going to do echo this to that.txt. Don't be concerned with it, but basically I'm going to say echo says print whatever comes next, and I'm typing the word this, and then I've got a greater than arrow, which means redirect the output from here to a file called that.txt. And so I'm going to scroll this down right here. I'm going to pull this up. All right, and so then now I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to execute that, maybe. Why won't it run? There we go. So they created this file called that, and it has the word this in it, right? So it created a file in that folder, right? So I can do things in the command line that affect the actual machine, right? So echo this greater than that.txt created a file called that.txt with the word this in it, right? And I could do two greater thans, echo more stuff. And so two greater than says to edit and add more stuff, right? If I would have done just the one greater than, it would overwrite it. So now if I open this, it just says more stuff because it overwrote. Because I need two greater thans. And we'll just do even more stuff, right? So now it'll be two items in here, right? More stuff and even more stuff because I did the two greater thans. So that just means append. One means to write, and so if there's something there already, it'll delete it and it'll overwrite it. If I do two, it'll append, you know, and I can create my own log files this way. You know, as things happen, I can append and then create a log file. This is how some log files get created. And I can do this in Linux, right? So let me go to Linux and let's go to our documents folder. And it's empty, right? So I can do an echo this greater than that.txt, and we'll go back here. Oh, oops. I need to go CD documents. Now if I echo this to that, right, now I've got the file that.txt. So the commands in some commands work identically, right? So it's this this is in the text file, and so let's go back here and then let's do more stuff with two greater thans. We'll go back, we'll open it up, and so this and more stuff, right? So the echo command and the folder redirection and the redirection, the greater thans and two greater thans for append work the same in Linux and Windows. But there are certain files, well, like we had to do dir to list the directory in Windows, but ls to list the directories, list the directory in Linux. So there are certain commands that are different and some that are the same. But that is our introduction to Linux real quick, and I'll see you in the next video for chapter 12.